Hi friends, WizD here. Welcome to a new Raid Shadow Legends video. In this video, we are starting a new series of quick guides of different areas in the game. What's the idea here? Let me take just a minute from this first video to explain how the series will go. In some complex areas of the game, dungeons, bosses, and so on, you need extended, longer videos usually to start learning about the boss, the mechanics, how to beat him, different team comps, and all of that different stuff that you need. The problem with those longer videos from me and other content creators is that they are hours worth of content, and also it might be more difficult to go back to some of these and just search for a specific point that you want a reminder of. So the whole idea of those quick guides is to provide you the basics of certain areas in the game in a few minutes with timestamps and everything on the videos so you can go back to them. This is meant to be your cheat sheet to go back to and quickly find what you need regarding this specific area. In our video today, this is about Hydra. If you like the formatting and how those quick guides series goes, let me know in the comments below, and of course like and subscribe, and let me know which other areas that you want to see quick guides on. I already have few planned, but of course that might change based on your feedback. Let's now start our first quick guide for Hydra this time. The thing we're going to do, I'm going to skip the actual names of the head. I don't want you to just get confused with Ras, Mischief, and all of that stuff. Let's focus on quickly identifying the heads when you see them or when you jump into that Hydra fight, and then what each head would do. Our first head here is the blue head. It's the only light blue head. You see a picture of it on the screen now. So this is a blue head. Let's call it that. What does the blue head do whenever you're attacking it without a veil or a perfect veil on you? It basically puts a true fear on you. Why is true fear so bad? Because it makes you skip a turn and lose the cooldown of the skill that you just tried to do. How to prevent that nasty true fear from landing on your team? We have several mechanics of doing so. The first one is simply to apply Veil or Perfect Veil on the team. Two of the best champs to do so, we're seeing them on the screen, Duchess Lilitu and Richter Drath. Of course, they have more usability into Hydra fights than just the Veils there. That's why I'm giving you a couple of examples of the champs you can use. This won't be an all-inclusive list, not for this one, not for the other ones, just what the heads does and a quick example about how to counter it. The second mechanic that we can do to counter this head, it has only one champ in this list. This is not an example, this is the only champ that has a passive that does so, which is Inquisitor Shamail. Inquisitor Shamail, basically the passive is it prevents your team from getting feared. He just prevents fears on the team. He can also do a good amount of damage to the Hydra heads, and with his A1 he can remove buffs, which we'll see in the other heads mechanics there. Third mechanic to handle the fears, it's use a champ that simply cleanses those fears from the team on a continuous basis or as frequent as possible. The two examples I'm putting here is Tuhanarok and Doom Priest. Doom Priest is less usable because she doesn't provide much value beyond that. Tuhanarok is very strong in Hydra and everywhere, but of course she's a Void Lego. That's the first head done. Let's move into the next one. Second head is simply the orange one. Orange as fire, you're seeing it in the image, you'll know it when you see it. What does this hit do? Smacks hard, really hard. If you underestimate this hit, it can wipe out your whole team with a couple of hits. It's the hardest hitting Hydra head by far. How to counter this? We have a very simple way of doing this. Decrease attack. You want to keep decrease attack, the big version of it of course, on this head all the time, or as much as possible. There are so many champs that applies decrease attack. The examples I'm giving you here are examples that are commonly used in Hydra. So Artag, because of course he does more other stuff than just decrease attack. Almighty Uku also because he covers multiple roles across Hydra heads, not only this. And the patterns that you're seeing here, if you see champs or examples of champs, again this list is not all inclusive, in multiple of these heads counters, then these champs are the best ones to use for Hydra. Is this all that head does? No. It also applies provokes on you. The provokes increases the buff counter that makes it hit even harder. It also prevents you from targeting other heads if you want to, in case a champ is getting devoured or something. How to counter provokes? Very simple there. Either apply block the buffs on you. Someone like Duchess Lilith who can do so, and a variety of champs. Examples here, Tuhanarak, and of course Ugu as a cleanser can also help with that. The examples here are also used to counter other stuff from other heads. That's why they are so good here. That concludes it for the orange head. Let's move to the next one. Next head, I struggled a little bit to name it a convenient name. It's gray, it's dark, it's almost black. This is the darkest head of them all. So you'll know it when you see it. And luckily this head is the easiest to counter. This head, yeah, it applies Pain Link on you and provokes also if I'm not mistaken, but it doesn't do much else. So this is one of the easiest heads to counter. What to pay attention to regarding this head: if it devours, if it eats one of your champs, this head takes extra turns. So if you're monitoring that devouring counter when your champs will be gone forever, if you see 2, you are in danger. You have to free your champ as fast as possible because the counter gets to 2, otherwise it will take a couple of turns back to back and you lose your champ. There is not much to do regarding countering this head. As I said, it's just annoying. It also applies provokes, same thing like the previous head, the orange head, and of course you can counter it exactly the same way. Just cleanse, block the buffs, and you're good. That's it for this head. Let's move to the next one. Now we're getting into heads that might be confusing because they look a little bit similar. That's why I have put 2 pictures on the screen behind me of the head in actual fight and its image, like its avatar when you're starting the fight. I'm calling this the yellow head because that distinguishes it a little bit from the other 2 heads that we'll talk about after it. So this one, how many heads do we have left? Okay, forget about that. Let's focus on this one. This head is yellow. You see the yellow stripes there. These are very distinct from the other heads that we'll talk about after this. And this is the nastiest head of them all. And this head by itself is responsible for 1/3 of the players quitting the game because of being so frustrated at Hydra fights. Why? We'll see what it does now. So, this head basically does 2 things. The first thing that it does, the effect, the active things that it does is that it steals buffs from you and spreads them across Hydra heads. So if this head steals buffs and spreads them on everyone else, you're in trouble. You won't be able to land your decreased attack on the orange head or other debuffs that you need for other heads that we'll talk about in a minute here. Before moving into the next nasty part that this head does, how to counter that buff steal and spread, simply by having blocked buffs up most of the time, all the time on the Hydra heads. So if it tries to steal the buffs, yes, unless you build a very high resist team, the resistance requirements for Hydra are really tough, especially when you climb into harder difficulties. But if you keep block buffs up all the time, that simply solves the problem, because it will steal the buffs, but it won't land on it and it cannot spread it to other heads. So that's the easy way of countering it. Of course, high resistance team is the other way of countering it and building a mischief tank, but let's not make the guide longer. For most of us, we're placing block buffs and that's it. Champs to place block buffs. Where have we seen these before? Notice the champs that are repeated across multiple heads here. These are two of the most commonly used champs. Ugu and Mighty Ugu are 2 that are named similarly, that are very good in handling Hydra specifically in that aspect here. Now let's talk about the second effect that this hit does, which is also as nasty as the first one. This hit simply, if it doesn't have Hex on it, you cannot land attacks directly on it. Your attacks on this hit got a 75% chance, which will look like more 100% when you're actually into the Hydra fight, of just redirecting the attacks into some of the other hits, which is not what you want, especially if this nasty hit just ate one of your champs. How to prevent this? To try and have Hex up most of the time here. So 3 of the most commonly used champs that can land Hex and have other utility in Hydra as well: Akmetum, Mithrala, and Mishinaki. Those are 3 champs that are great for this. There is 4 maybe even better option there that we might see in the other heads, which is Archer. Archer was part of a limited time collab with Monster Hunter, between Raid and Monster Hunter. I didn't mention her here, and I mention her just briefly on the next heads because If you don't have her already, if you haven't been playing during that 3 months period of the collab, you lost your chance forever of acquiring her. So if you're watching this video in the future, mentioning her won't be relevant to you. That concludes it for the yellow head, the nastiest one in my opinion. Let's move to the next one. The two remaining heads, and that's why I kept them last, look kind of similar. So if you're not familiar with Hydra head, if you haven't done quite a few fights there, you might mistake one of them for the other, especially when the heads get cut and then they get respawn. They might change their position from the start of the fight and you won't be able to tell which head it is. But I'm trying to make it easier for you. So both this head and the next one are green, but the clear distinction here, this is green dots head. Let's call it green dots. I didn't know what else to call it. You see here in its picture, it got those green puffs on it. That's because of poison. This is the poison head, if you want to give it another name. So those green puffs are filled with poison. That's how you can distinguish this head. What does this head do? Poison cloud and poisons. Those are the two effects. So poison cloud, this is a buff it puts on the other Hydra heads. When this buff is up, it's really bad because you cannot land strong hits on Hydra heads. Because when the poison cloud is up and you're not landing those strong attacks, you're not doing damage to Hydra, you're not freeing your champs in time when they get eaten, and the third bad effect there is that some of your debuffs are hits, are attacks. So if you weak attack, you're not landing those debuffs that you need there. So that's why the poison cloud is bad. Poisons, of course, are bad because multiple poisons on everyone will start ticking and doing damage to your team, and you don't have a strong healer or cleanser on the team, those poisons will eventually kill your champs. How to counter this? The first part, the poison cloud. We talked about it before in a couple of the other heads. Block buffs is very efficient here. The champs we talked about before to apply block buffs, Mighty Uko and Ugo, they show again here, so that tells you how good they are. Simple other part, poisons, is countered by block debuffs, which we've also seen to counter provoke there. Or cleanser, which is the other mechanism of doing it. Again here, Duchess, Lilitu and Tuhanarak make another appearance here, that tells you how good they are. Ugo also is doing both roles actually to counter this head. So Ugo applies block buffs, but she's also a cleanser, helping you to heal and cleanse from those poisons. That concludes it for the green dots. Now let's move to the last head. The last head is also green, but it's different than the previous head. I call this one green tiles. Sorry if my second language is not helping me to give it a better name there, but that's green tiles head. It's also green similar to that other one, but if you notice its appearance in the actual Hydra fight here, instead of those green puffs, it got those green tiles or green pattern. That's how we can distinguish it from the other one. What does this head do? It does two effects actually. It almost cleanses the other heads from any debuffs that you need on them, which is bad for you because it cleanses and then you get poison cloud, it cleanses and then the other yellow head steers your buff and spreads them. So it cleanses all the debuffs and then it puts shield on the Hydra head with the lowest health on another turn there. Both effects are bad, but I'm focusing on the cleanse here. How to counter that? Simply, this is the only Hydra head that can be provoked. If you keep this head provoked, you avoid all of that nastiness. What are some of the best champs that apply provoke on this Hydra head just to keep it out of the equation here, to keep it from doing that cleanse and shield? Of course, the examples we're seeing on the screen here, Molly, you've seen her in some of my other Hydra videos, one of the best because she also got other utility. She does other things than just provoke here. Master Butcher is a very strong rare. Check my dedicated video on him because on lower difficulties probably he won't be suitable for harder difficulties, but if you don't have anyone else, he's a great option for lower difficulties there. And of course we have Void Lego options in Krisk and Grazor. If you have those, you're using them anyway, and of course they do other stuff than just the provoke here. Two other options. Bevald is really underrated. Bevald can put shields on the team and he also is a good provoker there. One of the good things about him and Molly, Bevald can apply provoke on weak hits, so poison cloud won't be an issue, and Molly also is just places the provoke, that also can counter the poison cloud effect. Archer, as I mentioned previously on a previous head, she was a limited collab between Monster Hunter and Raid. If you have her, she's one of the best options ever to use for Hydra. But if you don't have her, if you're watching this video in the future, you don't have a chance to get her anywhere. What is the only thing left that we didn't talk about to have those great Hydra results? Doing damage to Hydra. Because now you countered all the hits, you know how to survive, you know how to block the nasty effects that those hits all do. Now all we need to do is to do enough damage to the Hydra difficulty that we're facing, so you can get those top chests, get the hits down, get double chests, help with Hydra Clash and all of that stuff. How to do damage to Hydra. That's what we'll talk about, and that's the last point for today. First of all, the first advice that probably won't be mentioned here like written, but you need to have at least 2 and preferably 3 damage dealers for Hydra. Why is that? Because the risk of having one damage dealer that's doing most of the damage to Hydra, if this champs get devoured, if it gets eaten, you won't have a chance to get it back. Because if the rest of your champs are just buffers and support champs, they simply won't hit hard enough to get this champ out before it's eaten forever. So simply 2 to 3 damage dealers in a Hydra battle is a must there. And there are 3 main ways of doing damage to Hydra. The first of them is simply the same thing like traditional clan boss, the Demon Lord. It's just the masteries. So you should have War Master on all champs that do single hits, and of course Giant Slayer on all champs that do multi-hits, because that's how you do damage based on the Hydra head HP. So this is the first straightforward way of doing damage to Hydra over time, because this battle is a long one, is through your mastery, specifically War Master and Giant Slayer. What is the second way of doing damage to Hydra? Second way of doing damage to Hydra, which probably is the best if you have these specific champs, is enemy max HP hits. Those champs are the ones that will hit Hydra for millions at a time and help you with this. And the champs that we're seeing on the screen is just examples covering the most commonly used champ in this role. Of course, Acrisia is a Void Lego, so if you have 1 or 2 Acrisias, you're great, you're end game, you can beat all of the content, not only this. Note might be even better, the only non-void champ that's competing with void Legos in that end game content. So if you have a Note or 2, you're also all set there. A couple of the other champs that are more accessible to everyone and they can be very useful if built properly are Husk and Royal Guard. And of course they are non-void epics, so you should have 1 or 2 copies of them. You can use 2 Royal Guards or 2 Husks or whatever, and these can help you greatly with beating Hydra. Just bear in mind that the enemy max HP champs scale with Hydra difficulty. This is the second way of doing damage to Hydra. What's our third way of doing damage to Hydra? Simply HP burn and HP burn activation. This is one of the most common ways and the strongest way to doing damage to Hydra, and the champs we're seeing on the screen are just examples. Again, these are just examples, there might be other champs filling this role. I just wanted to give you some commonly used examples in this quick guide. As we're seeing here, Artak, we've seen him before, he's a beast, he was a free login champ that if you have will help you greatly with this. Ninja you cannot acquire anymore unless you're an old player in Raid, but Cronam is very similar to Ninja in how he behaves, and everybody can have Cronam from the referrals. The last example we have on the screen is Sikeya Flametongue that can do exactly the same, and all of them do other stuff than just the HP burn and activation, and this is the third common way of doing damage to Hydra. This concludes our Hydra quick guide. I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the formatting. Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate your feedback. I don't mind even editing the video and re-releasing it if I said a couple of the wrong things or if you want to see it differently. But if you like this series, like and subscribe and tell me what else you want to see there. More of these quick guides coming. Thank you for tuning in today. I'll see you next time. Bye.